we had joined
So,
on.
Jason, should I take over?
So if you want to call the meeting to order, sure.
Okay, I want to call a meeting to order at 8:42. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, who's on the meeting is myself, Rolf, and yes to be chairman, Lee Jenkins, vice chairman, John Steinmetz, treasurer. Also, we have Jason Federico. We have Carl Hillstrom, Michelle Leary, and Joe Geary. And is that
Fred
Fred
Rogers.
Rogers
Fred Rogers?
and Brian Joyce and Don.
Brian Joyce and Don, our treasurer. Okay. With further review, I'd like to start the meeting and first of all, have updates on all projects. And that would be, Jason, I think you would start on that, or would it be?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up. So CPC applications. So one application was approved for the dam maintenance, the cleaning of the graffiti. The other one was tabled to the next meeting, which I'm not sure when that might be. But I will plan on attending if there is a meeting to attend. I'll reach out to Russ and see what the status is. The roof update. So I talked to the
I have a
engineer
question.
Yeah.
Now, are CPC articles going to go forward on this town meeting?
Don might be a better person to answer that. I'm not sure. I would assume so.
Yeah, I believe they're still planning on having CPC articles on the warrant. I haven't heard it otherwise yet.
So roof update. So I talked to the engineer yesterday. He has been in dialogue with Reliable. They are finishing up a project that they had started prior to this whole situation starting. And they're going to reach out and talk to them about what their game plan is for starting up, given everything.
Well, it sounds like they're working, so that's a good idea.
They still have the majority of their staff laid off at this time. And so I'm not sure what the status is there. So they're going, we do have a full bond on them if any issues happen, but I don't think we're going to get to that point. I think the contractor, when they did talk to him, said that they wanted something from us saying we'd allow them to work. And I told the engineer we'd be more than happy to do that. We had told them earlier that as long as they do a correct social distancing and have a plan in place to make sure that any staff member who is determined to be showing signs is not allowed on the site until they're cleared. That's what we would have requested if they decided to move forward.
What was the date that they were supposed to be starting?
April 1st.
Are we having serious issues right now with all this rain?
Carl?
No, we're not.
Okay, thank you.
Sludge removal status? That's that for next year. What are the plans for next year, Carl, on the sludge removal?
More than likely next spring, so that we'll go through a freeze cycle. Hopefully dry out a little bit better.
Lee, you had some questions about that? Oh, I can't hear you, Lee.
I think Lee's on mute.
Okay, how's
there
that?
you go.
Am I back?
You're
That's
back.
good.
Okay. When we had the sludge removal, did we remove everything that we had or just the old piles?
Almost all of it. There's maybe 25 ton that was not removed, but it is within the basin, so that will get removed next time.
Okay, because previously we were on like an 18-month removal. Do you think we'll ever get back?
We're actually going 2 years. It will be every year now. We don't have sufficient room to go 2 years.
Well, we have it in our plan to possibly expand the lagoon. So maybe we can get back to that, considering how much it costs every year to remove the sludge.
We certainly will be looking at our operation. If it could dry out an additional year, then it's more economical to dispose of. So if we could have two geo bags and leave one to dry out that additional year, that would help.
A lot, I'm sure. It would save us money in the long run. Okay, rate study status. Don?
Hey, I'm going to go back to the sludge for 1 second. The reason why we remove all of it from last year was because it was difficult to do that without ripping the existing bag that's in the lagoon. So we didn't want to take the chance that we were going to rip that bag open, and that's why we didn't remove 100% of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, the rate study status. Anyone have any information on that?
So that was presented to,
Well-
what were you gonna say, Lee?
Yes, I was going to thank Don for reaching out to Michael Dick from the advisory committee. I didn't realize until the other night when I asked a question at the advisory committee whether or not he had his questions answered. And both of us, Don and I, had been reaching out with former reports that Mary Gallagher had put out, and hopefully he has his question answered. Has he gotten back to you?
Yes, he did. And thank you for sending what you had. So Lee, I was under the same assumption. From the last meeting, I sent them, a summary level of all the old debt and then all our new expecting debt based on our rate study. I didn't hear anything back. I kind of assumed once I sent all the data that if I didn't get any questions back, that their questions were answered. So it was a surprise to me the other night when I saw your emails between him and once you guys CC'd me on him, that Mike Dick still had a question. So I did respond to him. I'm planning on having a discussion with him tomorrow, just to hopefully answer any more questions he has. I did respond to him, and I think I CC'd you and a few other folks on the email. And I explained to him kind of how to read that detail. And I think what he's trying to do is understand the old debt. So whatever was approved back in the late 90s, early 2000s, which is clear, it's on that detail. But because of the timing, I think, between when a town meeting vote occurs and when the debt actually is issued, could be years, because the town meeting obviously votes it for approval. And then the construction, the work has to be done. And once that's done, is usually when the bonds are issued to cover that cost. So I'm going to talk to him tomorrow and see if I can answer any questions through the meeting, and then figure out what's left of his concerns that I can, do some research for him or whatever needs to be done to satisfy his questions.
I think our problem is that most people don't realize that the recovery charge that are bills now is for that debt. I don't think we have hardly any debt that has been put on since that recovery charge started, because we've been
Not
taking
much, right?
Now, if you could break it out for Michael and explain to him how much is current debt. Because I know for the last several town meetings, we've been taking funds out of retained earnings and not going into borrowing.
Right. I want to say the most recent water debt may have been Bear Hill. There was some project. It wasn't a big project that I think we borrowed for, but I'd have to double check. But either way, I could break it out for him. I could show him each issue and walk through it with him, and hopefully, like I said, satisfy his questions tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think this is what people really don't understand, is because they think, wow, we gave you the money, you spent it all. But since it was projects plus land acquisition, and we couldn't just have the money in a fund and keep doing it, because we didn't know how much each project or land acquisition was going to be until after it was either finished or went out to bid.
Sure. So yeah, I'll definitely update you after I have a discussion with Michael or Mike, just to let you know where we stand, and if if I need to do a little more research, I could probably get an answer early next week. But hopefully our discussion and kind of walking through that detail will help them understand.
Yeah, but I think everyone else was all right with the study, because he was the only objection that I remember from the advisory committee, because they were ready to vote on it until he got that question answered. And the
Sure.
selectmen voted on it, didn't they?
Not yet. I believe they will wait, go through advisory first, and then would be heard by the selectmen.
It was a joint meeting where
Right.
we presented it,
So
yeah.
And then either way, so if Mike has these
The
questions, I'll try to
final one.
summarize what we come up with for answers, so that if other members end up having that same question, we'll have something available to other people.
The first meeting was a joint meeting, Lee. The second meeting where they were going to vote was a just advisory only meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're waiting for the information on that. Thanks, Don. Elm Street pipe replacement. This is, seems like this is,
Still an article for Springtown meeting. In the meantime, I've also reached out to Cavanaro to get a price to survey the project, so we could start developing plans ahead of town meeting. But given the spending freeze, that might not be applicable at this point in time.
Okay, I just see Chris has joined us.
hey,
Yeah,
Chris.
I just jumped off my other call for this one. So good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning, Chris.
Thanks for joining. Okay, so I guess
Okay, Rolf, you missed the system development charge.
oh yes, we did jump over, went to the sludge removal. I'm sorry about that. Okay, the system development fee, thanks.
So I officially wrote up what you guys voted on at the last meeting. So that is now the official commercial development procedure.
And the fee that you wrote up, the initial fee is the home development fee, right?
Yeah, that's based on the single family house. It's how we discussed it at the last meeting, that the commercial fee is based on the equivalent flow of a single family house.
Okay.
Well, it looked good. I mean, I remember doing that, and we kind of put that off until well, things got messed up with the whole the virus thing. But that's all set, so I think that looks good, and we can go forward with that as our template. And then, as far as the larger building is built off of that, based on the size. I mean, that is what.
Yeah, so it's just the same. It's the same exact formula we used the last time. So basically, you take the Title V flow of any proposed commercial development, and you divide it down to the gallon, and then multiply it by the gallon cost of a single family house.
Okay, that sounds very straightforward.
Okay, we still have to work with that project on Chief Justice Cushing Highway. They haven't come to us yet, have they, for their approval and development?
I think they did submit their request for connection. And they submitted a plan that I commented on, and they're going to resubmit a plan. We requested them to loop the water main through the project for fire flow reasons.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. Any questions, any more questions on that?
No?
Okay. So, and Chris, a good thing that you're here now. We're going to discuss town meeting and town elections. Are basically, what is the latest status on what's happening with that?
So the town election is set for June 27th. That's locked.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So So that's going to happen on the 27th. Carol's preparing the ballot and all of that. So that is the official date, is June 27th. Town meeting was tentatively set for June 22nd. Unfortunately, we're not getting very good vibes from FEMA. There's another set of flood maps that have to be adopted by June 19th. They were on the warrant. They were not controversial. And by the way, it's not just us, it's every community in the region. Many have not adopted these maps yet. So they sent a letter a week or two ago saying, yeah, pretty much you got to do it or it's going to blow the whole process up and we're just not going to give you any extra time. While we're lobbying feverishly with other organizations to get that fixed, I think on Tuesday night, the selectmen are going to have to move the meeting back to June 15th because we can't be in a place where we lose flood insurance potentially. So as ridiculous as it is for FEMA not to change this date or give us a waiver, not just us, but every community that's in the same boat, I think we're going to, at this point, have to move the meeting back to June 15th. So I drafted a tentative calendar, and what's going to mean is that we're going to have basically 3 weeks in May to bang this whole thing out and get where we are. We've already had one advisory meeting just to start the conversation. I do think so everyone's got to take a hard look at their budgets, and we're going to make an effort at streamlining the meeting. And when I say that, the planning board has already voted to hold all of their rezoning articles until a fall meeting. So let me step back. So June 15th is the day we're going to look at for the meeting now. June 27th is the town election. One of the other challenges is can we even pull off a meeting on June 15th? And we're still not sure that we're going to plan for that. How do we socially distance? There's really no legal way right now to pull a town meeting off like this, right? On an electronic platform. This conversation is going on. I just don't know that the state's going to give authorization. And even if they did, I'm not sure that we could pull something off, quite frankly. So town meeting would still have to be somehow physical. And we have to figure out a way to better socially distance. One of the other conversations is initially we're looking at a warrant of 36 articles. And we could probably have finished that in an evening, but it would have been a long meeting. I don't know that people are going to be so gung-ho about spending a lot of time, even with masks on, in a room. So one of the things that the selectmen have started to talk about is having a much more robust, what amounts to a second annual town meeting in December. And that's for a couple of reasons. I mean, obviously we need to approve a budget. We need to get some other articles adopted, just have to get done. We need to do some capital projects. Again, partly because there's things that got to get done. And if we have the funding, or at least the ability to borrow, it's a really good idea to get into the queue if we can on really important projects. We don't want to fall behind other people. And there's probably going to be some unused capacity in the system as people start to get their job sites going again and find other projects have stopped or stalled. That said, there's probably things we're not going to be able to do in the short term, and we don't really know what the impact of the budget is. I think we all expect it. There's probably more water being used right now, which is a good thing because more people are home. We don't know what's happening with state revenue. We already know that we're going to have to reduce the town's budget. We've already had conversations about that internally in schools. So we're clearly going to have to make some adjustments. We may have to make more in 6 months. So we're still going through that process. My expectation is that everyone's going to take a breath and say, hey, if there's things we can hold on, let's kind of take a breath for 6 months. That said, how everyone wants to proceed is up to all of you. For example, some things that we may have been paying cash for, we might want to at least short-term borrow for during the year to preserve liquidity. I think it's going to be really important that we preserve liquidity and have cash on hand to make sure that we can pay bills. So there may be some rethinking about even capital. We're going to have this conversation with sewers. They obviously have a very large project going on right now. They plan to pay cash for. I'm not so sure that it's smart to pay $1 million in cash right now for something that we can borrow, at least temporarily for, because that money may be necessary for just to keep things going, particularly if people start slowing down their payments. And we do expect we're going to see more delayed payments for water bills and sewer bills and property taxes than we've seen at any time in a dozen years since the Great Recession. So that was a bigger, broader answer to your question, Rolf. That said, we're going to have a very quick turnaround So I would suggest that you start to plan for a couple of meetings. I don't think we're going to be able to do giant joint meetings. To put 25 people in a Zoom platform to try to talk about a budget is going to be very hard to manage that. So I think we're going to have to do smaller meetings. And I do expect the advisory committee to get active very soon on a regular basis, and the selectmen to meet probably every week in May, the first couple of weeks, the last week of April and the first few weeks of May, to kind of grind through stuff. So I hope to have something to everybody after the selectmen's meeting next Tuesday with a much tighter schedule. But it's going to be a pretty quick race. And even though advisory has voted on stuff, I know at least some of the members are itching to re-vote on things, so that there might be some changes. And we're hoping to get capital budget meeting again next week too. So I think one of the things we need to buy ourselves is also a little time. If there's projects that have to get done and we should be designing them, let's do it. That said, there may be things we plan for and design we may not be able to do, but we should be ready to do them when the situation presents itself.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that.
Chris, can I ask you a question? It's John
Okay.
Steinmetz. Just wondering, is there any concern about not being able to get quorum for a June 15th meeting? And
Yes.
what happens if you don't?
So Don is already, so the state has given us provisions. So if a town meeting couldn't come off, and again, it could be because we can't get quorum, or let's say, there's a sideways turn on this whole thing and we can't gather in public. There are emergency provisions, and again, we don't have to go into the great depth about it, but Don could talk more about them as we get closer, to allow what's called an emergency 1/12 budget. So you can use last year's budget, or I should say the current fiscal year's budget, kind of roll it into next year, and spend at least 1/12 each month. Now, of course, part of the challenge is that it doesn't work evenly. For example, water has a lot of debt that comes due very early in the year, so we couldn't run a 1/12 budget for water. We also have to make sure we have cash to pay for all these things too. So there are some provisions that will allow us to drag into the summer in a very worst case scenario. I think we'd be better off if we got a budget adopted and then made provisions to watch it like a hawk, and then make adjustments in December. And we're going to do everything we can, John, to try to make we need 100 people, and that's the quorum minimum. And we usually put 300 or 400 in the gym, and we only use half the gym. So in theory, we could spread out amongst the gym much more broadly than we do. And we're also exploring whether or not we could we move it outdoors? If we had a nice enough day or an evening, could we go out to the field, or could we scatter throughout the high school a little bit more and have kind of people in little, much more spread out in remote areas? We're looking at all of those things. So we're hoping to, so that's one of the other reasons for maybe having a smaller, a more compact warrant of just things we absolutely have to do in June, and then maybe pick up some of these other things a little bit later in the year once we have a better idea where we are.
Thank you. You're doing a great job managing through difficult times. Thank you and everyone else at the town.
I appreciate that, John. Again, we're open to ideas. I had a great conversation with a guy on the advisory committee the other day about the concept of a virtual town meeting, and he shared with me things I hadn't even thought about. I mean, from the way that there are virtual meetings of shareholders in big companies. And so I think there's technology out there that could help us in the longer term. I'm not sure it's going to be available in the short term, but I really appreciate it. So if you or anyone else has any thoughts, we're all ears. So any kind of thoughts or creative suggestions, we're happy to have. One of the things, by the way, that's off the table at the moment is the Music Circus. I don't even know if they're going to set their tent up in June, but they've canceled all their events for June. So I don't think they're a site that would be available, because that's a really big site too. We could very easily socially distance a couple hundred people in the tent. I just don't think that's going to be available to us in June. So, thank you, John.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Dawn, financials, have we update on that? You did send some information to us. How are our collections?
I sent you the March 31st, 2020. And through March 30th, we're looking good. We've collected about 83% of our budget and revenues. Water usage, we've collected about 83%. Capital recovery, we're a little bit below the 75% mark at about 73. But overall, we're looking good through 3/31. We'll just have to watch over the next few months if there's any delayed payments due to financial impacts and things like that.
Have you noticed anything in April, any down trend or any more?
I'll have to take a deeper look at, I didn't have time. I was going to try to do that this morning before the meeting, but we know that we've seen a small dip in real estate and personal property. So I'm assuming there might be a small dip in water and sewer as well. But I'll have to take a look at that and get back to you guys with an answer. We'll just have to monitor it for the rest of the year and just see how those revenues come in. Luckily, we're in a good position with retained earnings if we had to offset any potential revenue deficits. But for now, we're on target. And then on the expense side, general expenses, we're at 63%, well below the 75% we'd expect through 3 quarters. So overall, I think we're looking good. And, just with the uncertain times, we're just going to have to continue monitoring our revenue and expenditure budgets through June 30th.
Okay,
Great.
I have a question. For the real estate tax bills, I noticed that they are now due on June 1st instead of May 1st. Are you also defraying fees and interest on them?
Yes, Lee. So with the new bill date, you have till June 1st right now to pay. So there's no penalties or anything. The new date is now June 1. So anyone can pay without any kind of penalties on June 1. So
Okay, then anything paid after that, they would have penalties, correct?
at the moment, yes, that's how it's that's how it's set up. We actually did just get a very large chunk of money from one of the from a set of banks that use a central processing company, which was really good for us. The board, so the way we left it is that if there's still particular challenges, we're going to go back to the Board of Selectmen in May and just give an update. And if there's a need to, the furthest that penalties could be delayed, and the board hasn't done this yet, that would be June 29th. The fiscal year is June 30th, right? So if people can, if there's folks who, might need a few extra weeks in June, and we get evidence of that, we might go back to the Board of Selectmen and talk. That said, I think one of the consent, if people can't pay their bill on June 1, we're not sure they're going to be able to pay it on June 29th either. And the fiscal year does close out on June 30th, and the town has to continue to pay its bills too. So at this point, though, it's through June 1. So it's as if the whole process moved back a month, and the selectmen are going to revisit at the end of May to see if there's any need to do any fee waivers beyond that. But again, the absolute deadline, even if the selectmen moved it, would be June 29th. They can't push it any further than that in terms of the waiver under the law.
Okay, I think in order to avoid confusion, because our water bills are due June 1st, that probably, we have those sandwich board signs that maybe we should be putting those out in June that the water bills are due, because we can't put them off for a month because that will be past the end of our fiscal year.
Yeah, we agree. We've actually talked about that, Lee, and that's a really good idea. I think we should remind everybody that water bills are also due on June 1, and I'll see if we can't change. We can add that, maybe that water bills and property taxes are due on June 1. Maybe we'll make them both. We'll do them both, because I agree. It's the same situation with the water department. We need to get the money in by June 30th, if at all possible.
So I'd say due by June 1, not on June 1.
Yeah, you're right. By. That's a good thing. Yep.
Because otherwise, Don, you're in trouble.
Yeah. So unlike property taxes, which are paid, a lot of them are paid through your mortgage. People pay their water and sewer bills themselves, right? There's usually not a central, so that's so there's a little more variability there that we're not really sure how that's going to affect anybody yet, or our collection, but we are watching it. That said, I am curious, and again, I think it'll probably be in the next quarter, if we see a bump up in water use, simply because there's so many more people at home than there, all these college students and others would otherwise not have been home during the day or at this time of year. Even the watering is probably down because of all the rain we've had.
Right.
I am curious if household use has gone up, and I don't know if you're seeing any of that anecdotally, Carl.
Yeah, I asked him about a week ago and he said everything was fine. Have you seen any uptick lately, Carl?
Maybe 5 to 10%.
Oh, well, that's good.
Not a lot.
Well,
That's real money, though.
That's,
Yeah, no, but I think we also have to take a look at what the decrease is in the town buildings to factor that in. If we can, run a study and see how much, the schools typically use and how much they're not using compared to the uptick in the households.
well, I think Carl said overall, without the schools being used, it's gone up 5 to 10%. That's actually, you're right, that the things are being used more by households, it sounds like.
No, but I mean, this way we could actually tell how much is being used by the household, not to say, well, it's just up this. Because
Right.
we have the library, the senior center, the schools. Not
Well,
using water.
the kids who would have been flushing the toilets at the schools have been flushing the toilets at home, I guess. So that said, that's a fair point, Lee. It's clear our schools are closed, right? We're not using, I mean, there's still some scattered staff in there checking the buildings, and the buildings are still being heated. So, we are using some water, but it's a lot less. And the senior center, by the way, we still have staff in there. They're still doing meal
Have
prep.
seniors in there.
I'm sorry? Oh, no, right, there's no seniors there. But they're still,
Right.
we're still doing, so you're right.
Yeah,
The-
but I'm
the-
just saying, different between having more staff to having 150 people during the week in there is a big difference.
Correct. So the good news is the reservoirs are probably pretty full from all the rain. So I guess we're getting well replenished.
We're
Full.
completely
And-
full.
We are starting the flushing program.
That's starting today, yes.
Now's the time to do it with all this rain and all this water. And a lot of rain coming. Okay, so
That's why I hope about the flushing program. I hope that people pay attention to it and that we have something on the town website, at least, or on Facebook 143, in addition to the reverse 911 calls that we're doing, because sometimes people, don't even answer their phone or don't look at their messages.
Great point, Lee. So if do you have the list of streets, Carl, that you're doing? And if you could just send it over to my office, we'll make sure that we do postings on the town Facebook page. And I'll go over to 143 as well.
You're probably receiving it from Brenda. She's doing the reverse 911 calls.
Okay. I got a call last night. So those calls are most likely going out. But if we want to put it on Facebook with the streets, just have Brenda then send it over. Brenda, I'm sure you're on here listening anyway. Just send it over to my office. We can post it up on Facebook. Or you could just package it up and send it to my office, and I'll make sure we get it to Justine and Jen. And if you want to have more of a reminder to folks about when the flushing's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, this is their home.
I'm gonna forward it right now, Chris, to Justine.
Okay, great. Jason's got it. So good. All right, we got that under control. Thank you for the update, Lee. I appreciate it.
I do have one more thing just on the financial stuff. I know we don't have many capital projects outstanding, but could we just get an update on, we have an article from the December 27th town meeting for various projects. There's only about $5,000 left in there, but if we could just get a status, whether that is complete or still kind of ongoing. And then also the Erin River Reservoir Dam project, looks like we still got a significant amount of money out there. And then all the rest are recent, so I know those are ongoing. But if we could just get an update on those two, again, just so we kind of have an idea going into future meetings and capital and things like that.
What is, oh, actually, Jason.
The dam portion, there's still one repair that needs to be done up there to the fish ladder. It's a seasonal thing that we will be doing hopefully this year.
Okay.
The various projects one, Carl, I think that's some of your like chemical feed equipment ones and stuff like that. I'm not positive what the status of that one is.
That's December 27th. What does it say, Dawn, on there?
I can look up the town meeting. I think we
Person
have
who
more
answered is
detail,
Brenda.
but-
Yeah, it was December 2017.
Yep.
17. Do you know what those projects
All I
are?
had on my end.
Okay, it looks like we still have, what, $4,600?
Yeah, it's not a ton of money, but just figure, getting close to year end, if it's done, we might as well just close it out. But if it's still ongoing, You know,
I know the
so
last
knowing
time we
about-
talked about it, there was stuff left to do. And like I
Yeah.
said, I know Brenda would be the one that would 100% know.
Okay,
Okay, and it looks like there's still an open PO for 2,500?
correct.
Okay.
On that note too, though, the filter project is 99% complete. With the media's all been replaced and the broken under drain portions were fixed. And additionally, as we added some additional funding, we looked to repair a crack in the wall of the filter. We repaired it on the inside with concrete and then injecting the exterior crack. So that was done with the existing allocation.
That was a good find. That saves some money on.
Great.
Okay, so any other questions right now? Any other comments? Well, the Water Commission meeting note approval. Do we have a motion on that?
I move to approve.
Here, a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Okay, again, commission comments, I did not hear any. Setting our next meeting. Okay, a calendar, it sounds like we may have to discuss things sooner than later. So we can move it to May. Oh, well, actually, the selectmen's going to be meeting on different things. So we can move it to the 12th of May or the 13th. The same format. Anyone have any conflicts with those?
Well, I am still waiting to hear from the hospital for Lee's operation, which was supposed to be May 13th, so I don't know.
So we will not target anywhere there. So what we need to get it.
No, I could probably let you know. They're supposed to call us back at the end of the month.
Okay. So want to tentatively set it up for the 12th?
Okay.
John, is that good for you?
That's good for me, Rolf, and thank you for extending your term. That would have been, right?
I don't think I extended it.
Right.
Oh, boy.
Everybody got an extra 6-7 weeks, so
Right.
Well, I get overtime pay, right?
yeah, you get the same, you get the exact, you get the exact same time for the next 7 weeks you've gotten for the last 3 years.
Perfect.
It's an extra big cake when you leave.
Last 6.
Get the thanks of a grateful town.
Yes. Okay, so without any other comments, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:20.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for joining our meeting, and we will talk to you soon. Stay
Thank you.
well. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody. Be well.
Stay safe.
You too. Thank you.